For late-breaking news, weather, sports, and traffic, sometimes before we can even get it live on the air, sign up for our Twitter feed, twitter.com/KU Radio. And from KUR News, I'm Mike Regensberger.
Any views or opinions expressed on KUR are not necessarily those of Kutztown University, Kutztown University Student Government, Kutztown University Student Services Incorporated, KUR staff and management, or other affiliated organizations.
The radio voice of Kutztown University, KUR Kutztown, broadcasting live at 1670 AM and streaming online at www.kutztown.edu/KUR. Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning or good evening, whatever applies to you as you're tuning in to this air check / pilot edition of the Tyler Werner Show right here on KUR. And what am I here for? Well, this station does not currently have a show devoted to Philadelphia sports teams. And, here on this station we have a couple sports shows. Just got done listening to the Anthony Marchetto sports show, the Sports Power Hour, live right here on KUR. He talks about a lot of national sports issues. We also got a KU Bears show, a more KU sports-oriented show. But we do not have a show on this station yet that deals with Philadelphia sports teams. And again, like I said, that's what I'm going to be here to do. And I could go on and on about myself and all my history of following Philadelphia sports teams, but we're going to get right down to the issues here. This is where I come in here on KUR. We're really focused on the Philadelphia Eagles this first year with new head coach Chip Kelly. And week by week, I mean, there's so much to talk about with the Eagles. The main issues surrounding this team, as of late, is Nick Foles our franchise QB for the future? Should the Eagles draft a QB in the upcoming draft after the season? Is Nick Foles going to do a good enough job? Can Chip Kelly make his system work in the NFL, or is he going to have to modify it and tailor it, make adjustments to the speed and the grind of the NFL game and the differences that it has compared to college football, where he came from? Is this defense, can Billy Davis continue to make improvements? We've seen the defense play well in recent weeks. Is this a system to root with for the future? This, sort of hybrid of the 3-4 defense that they switched to over this season with this new regime. Now, obviously, the Eagles are coming off of 2 straight wins. Now, a couple weeks ago, we were sitting here with a 3-5 record after 2 pathetic displays of offense against back-to-back division rivals, the Dallas Cowboys, where Nick Foles played, was the starting quarterback, and just had a pretty terrible game, to say the least. And then he got knocked out with a concussion that game. They go to the Giants, and they can't mount any offense for whatever reason. The defense in both of those games keeping them in it. But last week, the Eagles travel 3,000 miles to the West Coast in Oakland, a team that historically they have had trouble winning against. Dating back to the John Madden-led era, and coming off of 2 bad losses, a lot of people expected another loss in Oakland. Nick Foles returned that week after suffering a concussion, and possibly, I mean, this is a bit of a joke here I'm saying, but maybe that concussion knocked a lot of sense back into him, because that game he threw for 7 touchdown passes, put on a clinic. He tied the record that Peyton Manning also tied earlier this season, of course. 7 touchdown passes in a game. Both of those guys have done it this year, and it hasn't been done in over 40 years. And, here Nick Foles puts on a clinic. He had more touchdown passes that game in Oakland than incompletions. A remarkable statistic. He had a perfect quarterback rating, and he did all that essentially in 3 quarters. The fourth quarter, he probably could have thrown 3 more touchdown passes, but Chip Kelly kind of doing the smart thing. He pulled him out, and basically from that point on, second teams were on both sides of the ball pretty much, and essentially it kind of turned into a preseason game. So, now what we're looking at is a week-by-week evaluation of Nick Foles, to me. Michael Vick has had trouble with his hamstring this season, and, in his career has had trouble staying healthy. And at age 33 and going on 34, his time is, in this league is numbered. And I don't think the issue anymore, is what, do you start Foles or do you start Vick? At this point in the season, you got to see what you have in Nick Foles the rest of the year. Now, they came into the regular season with Michael Vick as the starting quarterback, with Michael Vick as the guy who could run Chip Kelly's, read option offense, clearly more along the lines he wants to run it, as, compared to Nick Foles, who is not very mobile, and, whereas Michael Vick is known for his mobility. But again, Michael Vick has, came back against the Giants rematch a couple weeks ago, and, he re-aggravated his hamstring. It's unknown, his status at this point. And at this point, it's no longer, to me, Michael Vick, I've been a fan of the guy the past few years. I loved what he did in 2010. The guy he had his past, and he really, rebuilt his life as a man. And, he's been a good teammate for the past few years. But in this league, his days are numbered. I'm not saying he can't play for somebody else next year, but I don't see him being, re-signed here in Philadelphia, and making a return next season. So, where we're at is evaluating Nick Foles. And, well, let's face it, he beat Oakland last week with putting on a clinic, 7 touchdown passes again. I'm sure that's not news to anybody listening there. But then this past weekend, they go to Green Bay. And, here's the funny thing. They haven't won a home game in over a calendar year, the Eagles. They're 5-1 on the road now this year, and winless at home, 0-4 at home. So, it's good. They can play on the road. Here they go to Green Bay. Now, Rodgers was knocked out last week. Aaron Rodgers is obviously, he's a top 3 quarterback in this league. And, they went to Seneca Wallace, who wasn't even in camp, but he was their backup when he got knocked out, or when Rodgers got knocked out. And essentially what happened in this Eagles game is early on, Seneca Wallace got knocked out by the Eagles. So a guy that they signed, I don't even remember his name, but 2 weeks ago, their third, who was essentially Green Bay, had to bring in their third string quarterback. And this was obviously a disadvantage for Green Bay that Green Bay was facing. Initially, had Rodgers not gotten knocked out, everyone would have thought this is a surefire Green Bay Packer win. But right now, Green Bay's season is, as they're waiting for Rodgers to come back in a couple weeks, their season can be, might be in jeopardy, as they had a hand on this division, on that division, I should say. But the Eagles come in, and they beat the Green Bay Packers pretty handedly. Again, with Aaron Rodgers out, Clay Matthews making his return in this game, he's had a thumb issue. So, but he comes back to this game, with his hand wrapped up. I mean, it looked like he had an Everlast black boxing glove on his hand. I mean, so this kind of limited Clay Matthews a little bit. He's not. He basically was playing without a right hand. I think it was his right hand, but he couldn't. So essentially, he's not going to be able to wrap up and tackle guys, and he's known for making predator-like tackles on guys and just ripping them down and making athletic plays, for a linebacker. So that handicapped the Packers a little bit in this game. So, this was a banged-up Packers team, but I guess still we can enjoy this win. Kind of like Andy Reid once said here. Just enjoy the win. But
get some water.
It's tough. I mean, it's tough though. This is like the first team that the Eagles beat this year that has actually has a winning record. But granted, it was again the Packers were handicapped, and I'm not making excuses for the Packers because Nick Foles came in and did a decent job in this game, and Riley Cooper has had 5 touchdown receptions over the last 2 weeks after not really doing anything early in the season when Vic was playing quarterback. I mean, I like to joke Cooper's like Nick Foles' favorite wide receiver. I mean, he found him 5 times over the last 2 weeks. He's made some nice plays, big receptions. And, Shady McCoy, the leading rusher in the NFL this season, came back this week, more to form, putting up a lot of rushing yards. I think a $140, 140 rushing yards or so. And what's more to say there? And with this offense as of late, with under Nick Foles at the helm, he's been putting up some impressive stats over the past couple of weeks, and certainly, I mean, he's been spreading the ball around to different guys, especially the game at Oakland. He's been spreading the ball around to different receivers. And, as big of wins as these are for Nick Foles, they're just as big of wins for Chip Kelly in my mind, for Coach Kelly. Because essentially, he's like, the past couple of weeks, he's been tailoring some of his play calling and strategy to fit Nick Foles. And, the ball, again, has been getting spread around to different receivers, to the tight ends more. Maybe not as much this past game, but definitely in Oakland, the ball was spread around to the tight ends more, which was good. Obviously, that helped them out. And, Green Bay, they didn't have, Clay Matthews' full strength, I guess you could say. I mean, again, his hand was wrapped up, so I mean, that made him more quiet on the field compared to usual. But I guess take a win here. But again, this whole season, and with Nick Foles especially, this is a week-to-week evaluation process in my eyes. I came up with this little theory, the Nick Foles dartboard theory. And what that entails to me is like this evaluation of whether or not he can be a franchise quarterback. Because this is a desperate fan base, no doubt. This fan base, the Philadelphia Eagles, is dying for its first Super Bowl championship. That's the bottom line. And when you get desperate and you're looking, you're trying to figure out if you have a franchise quarterback or not, you get desperate and you tend to exaggerate. In the past couple of weeks, fans out of desperation, I think, have been, jumping to one side of the fence and saying, Nick Foles is our guy, no doubt. And, I mean, you'd like to say that, but my theory is you have to let it play out the rest of the year. Because, like what happened in Dallas when, after a couple good games, he went into Dallas and he had an absolute clunker of a game. And was so hesitant to throw the ball. And, to me, it's a matter of, can he stay consistent? That's what it's going to come down to for Nick Foles. If the pattern repeats itself, he's going to have a clunker in Washington. Well, here's, this coming weekend, big division game. But this is going to be a chance for him to break that cycle in the rest of the season, too. I mean, going back to my dartboard theory that I was about to get into, there's a couple games where, he played decent. Like you're throwing at a dartboard, he hits the 20, and then at Oakland, he threw an absolute bullseye, dead center bullseye, with his record-breaking day, record-tying day, I should say. He played decent at Green Bay. Maybe, he threw a 20 there. He played great at Tampa Bay, threw maybe a semi-bullseye. But then you look at a game like Dallas, you have to take in consideration, it's like he threw the dart and it didn't even hit the board. Like, it hit the wall near the dartboard and just, maybe create a little hole in the wall and just fell to the ground. So you have to let the rest of the season play out and see how the rest of the, proverbial Nick Foles darts, see where they land. See how he plays the rest of the season. That's really where we're at here. To me, that's the fairest way to look at it. And I want him to be our franchise quarterback in the future. But, I want him to play well enough so that I can decide for myself, yeah, this is the guy. But, there's also the idea of maybe drafting some guy that fits what Chip Kelly set out to do here in the NFL, and that's run a read option offense that Nick Foles doesn't really run effectively. So, I mean, it comes down to three factors. Can Nick Foles stay healthy? Because he's had issues staying healthy here and there. Can he stay healthy the rest of the season? Can he continue to win? Can he continue to play well, as he has been in the past couple of weeks? Or is he going to have more clunkers? And thirdly, it's going to come down to, is Chip Kelly willing to be flexible and tailor his playbook to Nick Foles' more pocket-oriented style? Or is he is he really determined to run his read option offense that he ran with mobile quarterbacks in college? We're running into a break here, so just leave you with the thoughts here. And the number to get in is 610-683-4058. Even though this is, of course, obviously not live, so I just say that out of rehearsal purposes. But for future reference, that's the number to get in, 610-683-4058. We'll be back after this.
Complaints, concerns, questions, whatever you may be thinking at the time, it's KUR at kutztown.edu.
You don't usually get a stock tip from a 16-year-old, but I'm here to tell you about a different kind of stock. It's called Better Futures, a stock for social change that's not about making money. Instead, you invest to help students like me go to college, which ends up making the future better for all of us. My name is Alicia, and I'm your dividend.
Invest in better futures with UNCF. Visit uncf.org/invest. A mind is a terrible thing to waste, but a wonderful thing to invest in. Brought to you by UNCF and the Ad Council.
Wow!
It's 4:50. Tyler Werner Show right here on Kutztown Radio. Obviously, very exciting time for the Philadelphia Eagles. A lot to talk about. Their 5-5 record. They're tied with the Cowboys again. for the lead in the NFC East division, which has been touted as being very weak this year, and rightfully so. I mean, anytime you're tied with someone in the division for a 5-5 record, and everyone else is below that, that's a sign it's a weak division. And an 8-8 record could very likely win this division, and this division, interestingly, could come down to the last game of the season, which is the Philadelphia Eagles against the Dallas Cowboys. So that'll definitely be, that's where we could lead there. But taking a bit of a detour from the Eagles right now, let's get into the Flyers a little bit. They got a game tonight against an average Ottawa Senators team, and obviously, if you've been following the Flyers to any degree, this is a disappointing season thus far.
I just think somebody owes us an explanation, that's all.
A 5-10-1 start, first 16 games. And of course, Coach Peter Laviolette getting fired after starting 0-3. It was quite a quick move to make. I think it was a little uncalled for, and Peter Laviolette, he's a Stanley Cup winner. He won a Stanley Cup in the past, and I don't quite think he was the reason that this team, has not been performing well and continues to not be that great, really, to be one of the cellar dweller teams of the Eastern Conference in the NHL, the Metropolitan Division, as they now call it, after realigning the divisions, I guess you could say, and having 8 teams in this division. But over the weekend, Saturday, Claude Giroux, team captain, finally scored a goal this season versus Edmonton. He hadn't done it since about mid-April. This is a team captain, a guy who has been, billed as a top 5 player in the league. He finally broke this bad streak here of scoring a goal versus Edmonton. Now, to be fair, okay, they beat the Edmonton Oilers 4-2, but the Oilers are terrible. They're even, record-wise, they're even worse than the Flyers, I believe. They only have 4 wins this season to the Flyers' 5, so, But tonight they play Ottawa, and some people have suggested that, this goal from Claude Giroux this past weekend, finally ending that streak, is going to, maybe light a fire under everyone in the team. And, if that's what you want to believe, that's fine. But to me, this team is not talented enough to be a great team. And the players that, a lot of the players that this organization has brought in, I'm talking about like Zach Ronaldo's, and over the years they've continued to, the organization has continued to kind of move on with this Broad Street Bullies mentality dating back to the 70s. The idea, it seems, is, bring these rough and tough players and, draft them, sign them, whatever, year after year. And, to me, it's not really helping out in the long run. Now, obviously, if you followed the Stanley Cup playoffs last season, you knew that the final 4 teams in the playoffs that were remaining last season were the previous 4 Stanley Cup champions. The Boston Bruins, the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Chicago Blackhawks, who ended up winning last season's Stanley Cup playoffs, and the Kings, the Los Angeles Kings. And what that tells me is that those organizations know how to stockpile talent. And as much as we Flyer fans hate the Pittsburgh Penguins, you got to give them credit where credit's due. And Mario Lemieux, a top 2 NHL player of all time, has done has had a big hand in doing a fabulous job there. And continuing to get really good skill players. And I think that's what the Flyers need to do more. Stockpile more skill players and not these, rough and tough players that like to get in fights and drop the gloves. Unfortunately, the fan base to me is permissive of that. They sometimes it's as if, people are care more about, dropping the gloves than taking the puck and putting it in the back of the net. And putting the puck in the net is something the Flyers have really had a tough time doing this year. Despite having some, good goal scorers, even though like Claude Giroux just scored his first this past weekend, they've missed the net continuously. I mean, sometimes I feel like they could put a soccer net. They could be shooting on a soccer net and they'd still miss the net. They're not just missing shots by an inch or two a lot. They're missing shots by 2 or 3 feet. They're missing the net sometimes. So, going forward, they scored 4 goals against Edmonton the other night. This is that's only the second time they scored 3 or more goals this season. The other time they did it was a 5-2 victory that they won. But other than that, every other game they've scored 2 goals or less, and that is terrible. They got to start finding the net more. That's the bottom line. Nobody saw this kind of a disappointing start to the season. Hopefully it ends. But on the other hand, you look at the 76ers, nobody expected them to, at least start 4-4. Everyone expected them to, to tank this season. And, they lost to the Spurs, last night pretty convincingly. But the Spurs are a great team. But this Sixers team is a young team, and, at least they're not as bad as everybody thought they were going to be. They're not tanking the season thus far like everybody thought they were going to do. So, there's some faith in this young talent. Your Michael Carter-Williams of the world, and, it'll be interesting to see, what if they can continue to not look as bad as we thought they were going to do. And it'll also be interesting to see if the Flyers can maybe get something going here and, win tonight against Ottawa. Definitely I'll have to tune into that game. And coming up this weekend, of course, the Eagles take on the Washington Redskins at home. Hopefully the Eagles can snap this 10-game home losing streak now, I believe it is. That's got to stop. And the Redskins at 3-6, they're not looking too good this year. So, this is kind of a revenge game, though, for the Redskins. After that Week 1 game, I think they're going to be looking to get back at the Eagles here and try to get a win. But we'll see if Nick Foles can maybe put on another clinic or at least play decent. And hopefully they can come up with a win here. And the defense has been playing better as of late. Let's see how they can handle the Washington Redskins for the second time this season. I predict that they're going to win and end this winless streak at home. So that'll wrap things up for today here on the Tyler Werner Show, talking Philadelphia sports. Again, this is essentially a pilot edition, but stay tuned. I'm going to put up a Facebook page, and I'm going to try to find whoever is out there that wants to listen to this show. So thanks for tuning in, and stay tuned come January for the launch of the live Tyler Werner Show.